Okay. All right, good things are happening. Things are making noise. Still can't find, oh, there's Greg. I lost him again.
I'm here, I'm here.
Okay, good stuff. That's great. Okay. All right, good. Okay. So, Greg, let's just you and I chat for a second. And
Okay.
last weekend, you went and had some fun with your son,
Yes,
went camping or something, right?
that's right. I took,
Where'd you guys go?
we were up in the Asheville, North Carolina area. It was me and two other fathers with 8 boys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. No wives, right?
No, it was tent camping. It was real camping. No, the answer is no wives. Not my
No
wife,
wives.
at least.
Okay, I got it. All right. Fantastic. Well, you guys had a great time? Kids
We
are
did.
good?
We did. Me and my 16-year-old are flying out your direction next week and going doing 5 days of backpacking in Yosemite.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. So you're okay getting on an airplane, huh?
I am okay getting on an airplane as long as there's only one seat beside me. That'll be my son, and I will have a mask on for certain.
Got it. You know, you could start flying private now.
Yeah, could. I don't have Neil Schwartz money.
Yeah. Neil Schwartz isn't flying private either. Yeah. Like I said, if I had your money, I'd burn mine.
There you go.
All right, good stuff. All right, so let's rock and roll. We are Mastermind with Neil Schwartz. With our guest, we have Greg Harrelson joining us. This is very, very exciting. Greg and I go back a long, long time. 25, 30 years, Greg? Something like that?
Right, 25.
You were a teenager then.
Almost. I was a little past the teenage years, but yes, I
Yeah.
came in at a very young age.
Yeah, you did. You did. You started real estate very, very young and was very successful very early on in your career. And that's one of the things I kind of would you give us a little bit of a Reader's Digest version of that, the kind of those early years?
Yeah, probably the thing that I look back and say, wow, I had some fantastic things just happen to me that I look back and say I could have never planned it better. And that was I did start when I was probably 22 or 23, and I started as a part-time prospector for my dad, who was in the business for about 4 years, doing about 48 deals, I think was his production level, which back then, by the way, it was really big, right? Like there wasn't a lot of 100-deal producers back then. It was like a 50-deal producer was a top agent back then. But he was a Floyd Wickman clone. And so he was a sweat hog. So he believed in prospecting and scripts. I had to become a sweat hog. I then started prospecting for him. And then I ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a full-time gig. And then I got into real estate, and, my dad and I worked side by side for a while. We built a small little team of around 5 people, which was me, him, a buyer's agent, a listing agent, and then like an admin. And we started doing in the 300 deals to 400 deals per year pretty consistently.
For you and your dad.
Yeah, me and my dad. Yeah.
Right.
And then in 99, we decided to open up Century 21. And then in 2004, I decided, at the end of 2004, I decided I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now, there's a little twist there. That didn't mean I was not going to be a real estate agent. I just wanted to be a real estate agent that approached it like it was a business versus just approaching it like I was just an agent. And through that, we started building our brokerage like you have, but we built it as if it was like a team, but we didn't put everyone's production under my name. So I just decided I was going to build a brokerage that worked like and functioned like a team, but let everyone have their individuality and get the credit for their victories. And here we are, years and years later, doing thousands of transactions.
That's great. Fantastic. So So I want to talk just a little bit about the mentality of a top agent. I mean,
Hmm.
where did you make the switch from doing, let's say 20, 30 transactions a year and moving it up to 50 to 100 transactions a year? Where was that switch for you?
Where was it, or what do you mean? Like,
What was going, how did
in my
that,
mind?
yeah, how did that do it in your mind? Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I liked, I'm motivated by winning. And I just like to beat people at things. I just get high off that. I really do. I get high. If I'm playing basketball, I want to score on you. If I'm playing tennis, I want to hit winners off of you. If I'm playing tennis and you think you're going to hit a winner off me, I want to dive so aggressively to make sure that you never ace me. I might not get the ball back, but you're not going to ace me. It ain't going to happen, right? In my mind, it's that way. I do get aced sometimes. And so the reason I bring that up, because Neil, when I started getting involved with Mike Ferry, there were plenty of people that I wasn't beating. And that's where it switched. It really switched when I put myself in an environment where other people were excelling, and I wasn't, and I had to like really work hard at my skills or my business maturity and whatnot in order to maintain that winning mentality, or to make sure I was getting what makes my heart sing, which is competing and winning. And again, some of my best experiences are when I compete the hardest and I end up losing. It really isn't the win, even though I like to win. It's the pursuit of it. And when I got involved with the coaching organization, I was around so many people that were doing such great things. I was just going home and working my butt off so I could actually be one of them.
Got it. Absolutely. So what were the steps? I mean, the scripts and dialogues. I mean, you seem like you're a very competent and capable guy. Maybe didn't need a bunch of scripts and dialogues.
Oh no, I mastered them.
Okay, good.
They were my Bible. Yeah. So I mastered the scripts. I took those scripts and role played every day, mastered them, recorded myself, listened to I got this thing that I say, the way to master script mastery is done very simply. It's like I read the scripts really fast, like we were taught, and then I write them, and then I actually recite them into a recorder. Then I listen to the recording for 2 or 3 days, and then I go and repeat the process. And then it's kind of like scripts. I looked at it as it's like learning a song. On the radio, we don't probably get on the radio or listen to the radio or music in the car with the idea that I am going to learn this Bruno Mars song. It's just like you hear the darn song enough, next thing you know, without even knowing it, you can sing along with him.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I treated it just like that. Like I did that and learned it to the core. And then I took it further and started role playing with people that had mastered the scripts. And then what we started doing was let's we played Stump the Chump. And that is like, whatever you can think of to say to try to stump me, say it. And, and don't tell me what you're going to say. Just say it and let me work through it. And then that gave us a lot of confidence in our ability to communicate with the consumer.
So knowledge equals confidence. You knew the scripts, You knew what to say, you practiced the scripts, knew what to say, and you were excited about going out and practicing on and prospecting, right?
Yeah. The prospecting was the reward for the hard practice that we had put in.
Got it.
That was the reward. It was like it's like the game, right? The game is the reward. Like we work our butts off in practice, all to play that 1.5 hour game, football game. And that the game time, that's the reward. That's not a struggle. We do all the struggling in practice.
So we talked before a few times about the presentation, how important it is to know the presentation and be able to know what to say and how to say it at a really high level. So did you spend separate time on the presentation and separate time on the, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think that you've got the objections and you've got the presentation, right? So,
Mhm.
typically, that's a good question. I haven't ever been asked that question, and so I haven't really thought about it. But yeah, you're right. Looking back, I never really did role play sessions where I was doing presentation in objections or even like the just sold type of scripts. The listing presentation always seemed to be separate. It was like I had separate time set aside. Now it was still or role playing and skill building time, but I usually blended the just sold or the FSBO expired scripts with the objection handlers in role play sessions. And then what we did was we did a lot of the presentations separately. And what I did and what I did with my agents after I started, building the team is anybody that was on my team, they were required to first get script certified. So if you were to be involved with me, you had to take Mike Ferry scripts, you had to memorize them, you had to stand up, you had to demonstrate it, and you wouldn't be able to make an outbound call through our call system unless the manager certified you. And then once you got certified, then all that meant was you memorized the scripts. That didn't mean you internalized and personalized them, just meant you memorized them. So you just passed phase one. Then what you would do is you would have to literally cold call me, Greg Harrelson. You'd cold call me. You had to close me for an appointment as a just sold call. You had to pre-qualify me. You had to come to my actual house and I videotaped you doing the listing presentation. And then we'd set another meeting and I'd critique it.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question here. So mentally, in the beginning, you're making money, you're making these calls, et cetera, but it sounds like you're probably putting in at least an hour on practicing the scripts and dialogues, and maybe even a couple hours a day, right?
Well, the minimum would have been with my coach. The minimum would have been an hour a day, 5 days a week.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a money equation, because sometimes the agents, not agents on this call, but other agents say, well, wait a minute, why should I spend an hour a day? That's 5 hours a week. I could be prospecting and trying to generate a lead, but you quantify that, and because you got so good, you made a lot of money from that.
Well, yeah, I don't see that there's any, I don't even understand the conversation. I understand what you're saying, Neil, but I don't even understand the conversation that could happen in a person's mind that would have them even say that, because I did my role playing was at 6:30 in the morning, and it was 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning, which was nothing more than part of my pregame routine before I actually, at 8 o'clock made my first call. So role playing was a pre-game routine, just like a professional athlete is going to stretch or do a shoot around before the game. They showed up to the gym early. Role play was my pre-game routine. So there was it was actually part of me getting ready for the prospecting ritual that I had.
So
by the way, just because just in case you don't ask, I prospected every day from 8 to 11 and made a minimum of 60 contacts, period. And I did not have an auto dialer. Neil, those times when we were doing the double dials. I was really good. I could double dial manually. I had one headset. This ear was to my right phone. This earpiece was to my left phone. I double dial. So all these agents, excuse me, sometimes if I offend you, but I mean to, but I love you at the same time. I like all these agents that are complaining that they can't make 10 contacts in a 3-hour period. Like, it drives me nuts. Like I made 60, 70, 80.
Yeah, I get
manually.
I get it. I don't know if you can see the Zoom group chat on the right, but everybody makes a commitment, and we put a / on there because I'm looking for at least 200 contacts for the week. And sometimes they don't hit it. And I don't get it either, but okay, let's move on.
Well, you remember I started with my dad, so it's kind of like not taking out the trash when I was in the early years. So I didn't take out the trash, so like my dad, when that was the goal for me to do 60 minimum, it's
you didn't have to take out the trash.
No, no, what I meant was, like, as a kid, if I didn't take the trash, I got reprimanded. right? If I didn't do 60 contacts when I first started in the business, I got reprimanded. It's amazing how that accountability, that accountability there really set me straight and put me on the right path.
Yeah, but that accountability requires you to do something on a daily basis that's going to get you money. But so there's a couple of issues that I want to talk about there. One is, what do you do on the days you don't want to do it? That's one. And then B, because this happens, some of these agents are making more money than they've ever made before, and it's hard to get them back to work. So how did you deal with that?
So, okay. So first of all, those are two separate things. So how did I deal with not wanting to do it? I mean, I just didn't get, I had accountability set up at all times. So I didn't have an option. Like, it was going to cost me if I didn't do it. And it was usually going to cost me more if I didn't do it, because I had accountability structure set up where I had a friend that was also, had similar goals. And then if I didn't show up, then it was going to cost me $500 that day or something like that. But what I did is I created community around it. I created an environment where, like, if you tell your friend that you're going to be at the gym at 5 a.m, you're more likely to show up at the gym at 5 than if you are just going solo. So I'm that guy. Like, I am that guy. Like, if you hear me going on vacations, or doing something extraordinary in my mind, like mountain climbing, I enroll a group of people, inspire them, and convince them that they really want to go to Africa and climb Kilimanjaro. What they don't realize that I'm doing is I'm setting up in an environment where I cannot flake out.
Got it.
So that's how I protected myself, Neil. And that's self-awareness. I protected myself from myself.
Interesting.
And I had to set up that system.
Interesting. Well, that's a lot like the system that we set up that when we talk to each other every week, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to flake out on you, and you're not going to flake out on me. But yours is 9 o'clock, mine's 6 o'clock.
That's right. Yeah. Heck, you're texting, and you're way before 6. I feel like you're up at 3.
Well, because I have to work out.
Yeah. Now, you asked, the other question was, sometimes you have enough money, what keeps you motivated? So for me, Neil, it was never about the money.
That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So there was a point in time where I realized I plateaued. I plateaued at 300 transactions 2 years in a row, and it drove me nuts. Now, what I figured out.
What kind of money would that gross you?
300 transactions would have grossed me at around 1.5 million.
Okay.
About 1.5 million,
Okay.
So what ended up happening for me is I realized that was no longer motivating to me. And so what I did is I was always very clear of what I really wanted to trade my money for. Because I'm an experienced guy. I'm not a like tangible items, a material guy. So I got very clear that what the showing up meant for me and what it meant for my life in the area of, do I get to fly out and go camping? Do I get to fly to this country and this country? And that was way more motivating. So I ended up showing up because I was very clear on what I was really getting. Money is just the go-between. Money is a bridge that gets you from where we are to something else or somewhere else. So everyone that's focusing on the money, to me, they're just focusing on the bridge. They're not actually focusing on the true journey that they're going after. I was a little bit more present to what it was actually going to lead me to, more so than just being a bridge.
Got it. Okay. So the money just was facilitated.
Yes.
Your goals. Got it. Okay. Absolutely. Good. Fantastic. Very good. So we're moving forward. We're moving along. You're thinking in terms of an entrepreneur, which is similar to what we're trying to do with what we're calling CEOs. We're trying to take trying to take people and move them to the next level. So what was your thought process where you started thinking, okay, I'm doing this. I've got all these systems, et cetera, et cetera. Now I want to be a little bit more of an entrepreneur. I want to buy some real estate. I want to invest in this thing. I want to come out the other side with some money.
Yeah, I think it still comes back to like that's what all you all were doing. I'm looking at these people that were ahead of me and saying, what are they doing? Well, they're buying real estate. Okay, now I got to go buy, I need 100 doors.
Mm-hmm.
Because people said people were like, man, I'd love to have 100 doors. And I'm like, well, then I got to have 100, and that type of thing. So I was constantly, surrounding myself with people that were doing those things. And then me being competitive, I would get in and analyze it. And then I would say, okay, let me crack the code on how to make this happen. And then that just became a new game for me. And I was really good at goal setting. Okay. I was really good at goal setting and planning and saying, this is what this is what my goals are. It's going to be, I want to get this many doors this year. I want to buy them at, at least, 70% or 75% of fair market value. I would set goals like that or set rules. And then I just went after it. But it was constantly, I was always looking for somebody to chase. And I wanted to chase them down.
Right.
It's kind of like I'm a hunter in the sense that I'm hunting for listings. Well, I was hunting for top production also, whether it be top producer or this person owns this many rental units or has this much cash flow. I sought out people that were doing what I thought were extraordinary things. And I just made a commitment to chase them down.
That's great.
That's my game, right? That doesn't work for everybody.
Well, you understand that about yourself, and you keep setting yourself up for those kinds of wins. So
yes.
with that thought in mind, so we all ran into about 10 or 11 weeks ago, these lockdowns and this COVID thing, right? So I'm not sure, was your state an essential?
We were essential. We were essential. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So you guys were able to still do some stuff and work on some things at that time.
We were, yes.
Okay. So how did that affect you? What was the, it's about March 17th, March 15th, everybody's starting to go into this. And how did you deal with this mentally?
Contrary to what most people would probably do, I have to separate my two thoughts. One thought is, oh gosh, I do have compassion for people that are going to suffer health-wise. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any compassion for anybody that's going to suffer financially because, these agents that are going to suffer financially because of this temporary lockdown are not suffering financially because of the temporary lockdown. They're suffering financially because they didn't put in the effort, for the last 5 to 6 years to put them in a financial position to be able to weather these type of storms. So knowing that most people were going to suffer from a financial standpoint, or at least worry about that, then I knew that there's an opportunity here. There is an opportunity where there could be agents going out of the business. There could be agents that find themselves taking a second job. There could be agents that just, let this mentally bog them down, that they won't come back to the business that strong. So I knew anytime there's a breakdown or there's a disruption of something like this, then it's my time to double down on the proven methods that I know will work through any market shift. And that's really where my mindset was. Now, because I own a company, as you own a company, then I also need to not only do I need to have that mindset for myself, but I got to double down and make sure that I help those that I'm leading actually share that mindset. So I went into, I've got to take this mindset and I've got to influence all my agents, keep them in the game. I've got to help. I've got to personally identify where are the opportunities, because in every breakdown, there is a breakthrough. And the difference between who breaks through and who doesn't is the people who are focusing on finding those opportunities. So we kept making calls, but we changed our script.
Right.
Hey, I represent a lot of people in this community. Believe it or not, another one did sell even in the midst of all these things that are going on. And I just wanted to check in with other fellow neighbors and just check in to see how things are going. Is everything going okay for you? Is there anything we can do for you? And then I would lead in with that. And then we would just let the real estate conversation unfold. And a lot of times it didn't unfold. It just, we got in and we got out, never had a real estate conversation. But what we did do is we made an impression that we knew that we could leverage when we come out the backside of this.
Right. Well, that was the whole focus. And that's been almost every single week, our conversation, yours and mine. Yes. How do we capitalize, and how do we capitalize on this, and how do we help our agents capitalize on this and get them to go to the next level? Mm-hmm. And the situation is that there was a lot of people running scared. And we actually ran into the back room and tried to figure out how to help everybody capitalize on this.
Yeah.
So I told everybody in the beginning, we already had this conversation. We're going to come out of this, and we're going to come out of this roaring because of leadership. And it's guys like Greg, it's guys like Neil that make this thing happen. So it's good stuff. Very, very cool. So Greg, all right, so we'll shift gears a little bit. We're going to go back a little bit to mindset for you. Okay. You're prospecting, you're on the phones, you're looking for deals and niches and things like that. So your business Past Client and Sphere, your business Just Listed, Just Sold, Expireds, where did that come from for you?
So my biggest source was Expireds. That was my biggest source, okay. And then I did 4 sub-owners, but my biggest, there's no question, was Expireds. I can just remember the statistic for cold calling represented around 22% of my business. So that was a big portion of my big business also. Right. It just didn't always come from like I call today and I get a listing today and it sells tomorrow. It could have been I cold called it, I put it in my database, I sourced it as a cold call, and then 6 months it matured and came back to me and I did the business, but I still sourced it as a cold call. That represented around 20 to 22% of my business. And then the biggest portion was Expireds. And then in between would have been, past clients, FSBOs, et cetera.
Got it. Okay. So your Past Client and Sphere, let me back up a second. So this whole time you've been building a database.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And you've been really good, maybe one of the best I've seen, in capturing the database and dripping on it and touching them, et cetera. So how much of your business today, now you've spent how many years building this database?
I probably built seriously for the last 8 to 10 years, where I was very intentional that this is going to be my future.
Got it.
Type intentional.
Okay. So for the last, let's say 10 years, you've been absolutely driven on taking care of your database, et cetera.
Yes.
What percentage of so you do right now about how many transactions a year?
I'll still close 150 to 200 transactions. So I'm on pace to do about 150 transactions this year, just myself.
And you run a company with 2 or 3 offices?
With 5 offices, and we'll close around 3,700 transactions.
Okay. And you do that and still do 150 transactions?
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. And of that 150 transactions, how many of those, what percentage of those, let's say, come to you from all the work, effort, and energy you put into this system over the last 10 years?
All of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't made an outbound call for 5 years.
I'm letting that sink in.
We should. We should let that sink in.
I'm letting that sink in, because one of the biggest issues I have is convincing our agents to get and build and nurture their database. I'm not quite sure why they don't, but they don't. And here's a guy that did it, put time, effort, and energy, and spent money on it, and now doesn't make any outbound calls and makes whatever you make on 150 deals.
Yeah. Yeah. And on top of that, I've got plenty of agents that are doing that if they didn't make an outbound call right now, they would do 30 to 45, 50 deals a year. So I'm training them to do the same thing. So, you know, there was this one time that Michael Jordan shot a free throw in an official basketball game with his eyes closed. And I think about Michael Jordan and I'm like, how in the heck did he pull that off? But I know how he pulled that off. He pulled that off because 15, 20 years in a row, practically every day, he did his job. And he got to a point where he could do it blindfolded practically with his eyes closed. And he made that free throw, by the way. And so that's to me what these 150 transactions, 200 transactions is like for me. It's like, you know, this is not, somebody says, what's the magic pill? How do you do that? Well, I 60 contacts a day was my minimum. Many days it was 80 to 100 a day. Role playing was just my pregame routine. Like, I'm trying to think, how could I not be in this position considering the investment I made into my business? And that's what's key. It's like, you know, the greatest thing and the worst thing about our real estate career or business is this, that you have the ability to do what I just shared. That's the great thing. The worst thing is there's nobody there to hold you to the fire.
Well, if you do hold them to the fire, they quit.
Yeah, or that's what position you and I are in. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to we have to, you know, like we have to kind of like hold you to the fire to a certain level. Like, you know, if you would let me and Neil just really share with you what we really want to tell you, and you took all the fear that you would leave us because you thought we were being mean that day or didn't understand you or you just don't get it. You know, if we could remove all of that, then everyone would get to where they want to get to financially in half the time.
Yeah, but I'm going to leave and go to another company because I'm going to make $18 more, and you don't, and they don't charge me for number 2 pencils.
Yeah, I mean, see, the biggest problem, not the biggest, another big problem in the real estate industry is real estate agents know how to calculate net for their sellers, but they don't know how to calculate net for themselves. See, when they're chasing companies and commission splits, that's always a gross conversation, never a net conversation. But when you're talking with your sellers want to talk net. We need to be talking net. Because you can go, I don't give a dang what you think you can make in another company. You're not going to net more with them than you're going to net with me. So I always say it, and I say it like this. I said, look, at the end of the day, mama only cares about net. So before you make a choice to leave my company, let's go ahead and get mama in the room, and let's you and mama talk, and then you make a decision. Mama only cares about net. Daddy cares about gross.
Right.
Because it's an ego thing. It's an ego
thing. Totally. Ah, fantastic. All right. So what I want to do is on that thought, because I think that's a great thought, let's open it up for a little bit of questions here. Go ahead. Who's got a question for Greg Harrelson?
I just want to know if we can set some recruiting appointments and have Greg do that last 3 minutes on every recruiting appointment we set for like the next couple months. Can we just do that? Mama cares about net, daddy cares about gross. I think that would help. That would be great. I'm just going to call you up, Greg. Hey, I need you to talk to this guy real quick.
Hey, maybe you could cut out the sound bite because you got it recorded and somehow it just phases into the conversation and phases out. There's got to be a way to do it.
That's great. Great thought. Good job. All right. Questions for Greg Harrelson.
Greg, thank you so much. Thank you. What type of things do you do for your database monthly?
Yeah. So what I do multiple things. So I do have a drip campaign set up on them. So I created, you know, a long-term drip, which could, you know, it's probably 2 to 3 years. So that's just a kind of a set it and forget it that's there. I do send them through automation. I do send them a market activity report. So I've been very good about taking my database and making sure I have all their data, like their community, where they live and things like that. So then once I know that you live in a certain neighborhood, let's call it the Grand Dunes, then I will then set up a, it's not cloud CMA, but it's kind of like a cloud CMA type of scenario where you're going to get a market report every month that's going to detail all the sales that have taken place, all the active listings, the what has been withdrawn, the average days on the market, the average price, all of that's going to be in a report that's auto-generated from my website, and it's going to go to every one of them. Then I've got another report that I do from a company called HomeBot. That HomeBot, I put them in there, and they're going to get a report once a month also, and it's going to say, it's going to be kind of like what's my home worth type of report, where it'll show a graph, and this is what your property's worth now. Of course, it's just like one of those estimates, online estimates, but it also breaks down and says, hey, it pulls in their interest rate that they have on their mortgage and their mortgage balance. It's automatically pulled into my system. And then it tells them, this is the net worth of your, this is how much equity you have. This is your interest rate. This is the going interest rate right now. So in the event that you wanted to refinance, this is what your payment could be. And in the next so many years, you would save X amount of dollars. It then breaks it down and says, based on your zip code and the type of property you have, this is what the rental value would be on Airbnb. So if you rented it by 2 nights, 5 nights, 10 nights, 13 nights, you can actually toggle that. It'll tell you what your income would be off of Airbnb annually and monthly. So I've got these reports that automatically go out that I don't have to touch. That's just going on them, and it has a lot of value. Then I'm creating one video a month, and I'm talking about the real estate industry in my local market, and I'm emailing them that one video. That's what I'm doing.
Powerful, very powerful. So Christy Cybus from Facebook wants to know, are you purchasing lists? Did
No.
you pay? No. Okay. Did you pay someone like, I don't know, Sandler, I don't know who that is, to create your scripts? I know the answer to that. Those
No.
are Mike Ferry scripts.
Mike Ferry scripts.
Got it. My broker doesn't do scripts and lists. So far, all of my business has been based on referrals from friends. I
Yes.
get leads. So, right. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that was it.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing in the beginning, so it sounds like Christy is really referring to generating lists to make some outbound calls. So what I did is I had, actually what I did is I went to the county and I convinced the county to sell me the entire county tax rolls. Okay. So I then brought in the county tax rolls. And so then I had every tax roll, everybody who owned property with their addresses and whatnot. And then, and that meant I could segment it by community names. And then I went and sent that to a data house and had them look up all the telephone numbers and email addresses for each one of those lists. So I did it in bulk like that. Okay. But what you could do is in just about every MLS, there's some sort of a way that you can go and do a mail merge where you could choose a community and create a CSV file as if you were going to do a direct mail to that community. You could go through that same process. That's how you would generate your list. And there's plenty of places on the internet that'll you send that to, they'll give you the telephone numbers for them.
Got it. All right. Good. Iris asked, how'd you build your database over the years? And how big is it?
Yeah, I built it by making calls. So I mean, I probably made over 1 million contacts, through my years. So I mean, I built it one call at a time, pretty much.
How big is it? How big is it right now?
My personal database is around 35,000 documented property owners. From a company standpoint, we have probably around 100,000 that we know are actual documented property owners. So that's just what I call our sellers database. That's not the buyers. That's a whole different conversation.
Right. And you're in a resort community, right?
The Myrtle Beach is made up of 50% resort, 50% primary. And then all the other markets that I'm in are pretty much primary.
Got it. So Freddie wants to know how you help hold your agents accountable to do so much production. I'll answer that. You fire them if they don't.
I mean, come on, you guys can tell by my personality that it's probably not going to be easy to like hang out with me and not step up and play the game.
Right.
You
right.
can, I mean, I kind of wear it like all over myself. I am definitely not the cheerleader.
And are a number of your agents, are they in Mike Ferry coaching?
You know, they're all following Mike Ferry through me. So what I did, I used to, like you, Neil, I used to coach for Mike. So I do the coaching within my office, but everyone does participate just about in everything Mike does. I don't know how many of them are actually in one-on-one, but yes, we go out to events together. We participate in just about everything.
Got it.
So
okay.
There are no other coaching. There's no coaching that I'm aware of. And they probably wouldn't tell me. But there's no coaching that I'm aware of that goes on in any of my companies that's anything but Mike Ferry.
Got it. Cool. Good. Well, obviously it's working, right?
Yeah, it's the most effective and efficient that's out there.
So Patty said you did a lot of expireds. Did you do that all day, or did you change it up? Just list is just sold at your peak. So
at my peak, I probably did only expires because my ratio is if I had 3 contacts, I set 1 appointment. So I only had to talk to 9 people to set 3 appointments, and then I'd get 85% of those as listings.
Got it.
So I didn't need to, you don't have to, here's the key is like when you on the front end, when you put in so much time practicing and role playing and making these contacts, you actually get really good in spite of yourself. And so from an expired, like I can't even fathom if somebody said hello to me and they're an expired, like if they say hello, I've got the appointment. It's just a matter of where the rest of the conversation is to determine if I want to go on it. And that's a mindset, but I really believe that. I don't care what the expired says. I can't imagine anything an expired could say that I can't handle. And they can cuss at me. They can do whatever they want. I'll cuss right at them too. If they cuss at me, I mirror and match. That's what I was taught by Matthew.
That's great, Greg.
And we get that. I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, so I'm going to get the Southern Belle, and I'm going to get the New York Italian. Like that's back-to-back calls. So you got to have versatility.
Exactly. All right. Anyone else have a question for Greg? We start to wind down here.
Yeah, I have another question if nobody has one. So like if you're not that good at expireds and you need a lot of contacts to get an appointment with one, do you say you should do something else instead or just keep doing those till you get better?
Great question. So you keep doing it until you get better, Patty. Because it's reps.
Okay.
That's like me going to the gym. Like if you go to the gym right now, me and you go to the gym, and let's just assume that I can do something that you've never done. Let's say I can do a pistol squat. I could squat with one leg. I can't, by the way. It's just what came to my mind. I'm assuming you can't either, but maybe you would surprise me. Okay. But I know I can't. But let's just assume I can. And I did, boom, I just dropped down and do a pistol squat. And I said, okay, you do one. If you haven't practiced that, you're probably not going to do it that time. But if you go into the gym and you go ahead and now when you're practicing a pistol squat, by the way, you're going to look kind of dumb. You're going to look uncoordinated. You're going to fall in the gym on your rear end in front of other people. There's going to be people somewhere in the back of the gym probably like, look at this lady. She thinks she's going to do a pistol squat. And they're going to be like texting each other. Reminds me of that lady who thinks she can do a pistol squat. But if you keep going in there for a darn month and you just put blinders on and don't give a darn about all that crap, you're going to blow their minds and you're going to drop down and do multiple pistol squats. And then forever and ever, that's going to change the game for you.
Wow.
And so the whole process here, the challenge is that our minds, somehow that drunk monkey just tells us, oh, maybe we should do something different. Maybe this is that. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's not my style. Bull crap. That's all resistance. Mm-hmm. You keep going That's how believe me, I'm not a natural at calling expireds. I got hung up on before I got them to stay on the phone. But every time I got hung up on, I'm like, remember my personality. I was like, holy crap, they just beat me. I just lost. I gotta go back in the game tomorrow. I gotta keep going. And what I always told my coaches says, I refuse. I am the trained salesperson. I refuse to be outsold by people who are not even in the sales profession. What that meant is if somebody told me no, and I ended up off the phone without an appointment, then they won. And I said, I got to keep better. I'm being outsold by these people. I got to go back to the practice court.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Clearly, Greg, and everyone on here, if they would do what we're talking about, what you're referring to here, and what I asked them to do on our end, which is very, very similar stuff. But if we did it with that intensity and that focus, you and I would be talking to each other a lot.
Yes.
Because they could be better. They could be doing $1 million a year or $2 million a year, but they won't put up with the fact that they have to do their job every day. They tell me, well, I'm going to do 15 contacts. 15 contacts? Are you out of your mind? Do 50 contacts. Work for 40. No. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you push them to 40 or 50, they want to quit.
You know what, Neil, what's interesting, what's crossing my mind right now is the same things that they complain about with their kids are the same things we're saying about them. Like they're telling their kids, all right, look, you've got to make your bed every day. You got to do this and you got to do this and you got to do this. You can get your allowance. And then the kid doesn't make the bed and they go ballistic at home and the mom starts complaining. The dad starts complaining. Then they start fighting each other and all this mess is going around. But like, you know what would be embarrassing? If the kid actually shadowed the parent and saw that the parent is actually breaking breaking their commitments, just like the kids are breaking their commitments. If the parents could ever just be exposed to their children, like the reason why we have children that don't listen and follow the process is because we don't. And so I say that because I do say that stuff to my, my agents, especially the male agents that are younger but married. I'm like, all right, dude, what's your wife's cell phone number? Because I'm telling you right now, I bet you're going to go home tonight and you're going to tell your wife, oh my God, what a day. Man, I had to make all these contacts and other this, and man, no one's setting an appointment. The market's not. I bet you're saying something like that. And none of it's true. Like you're telling your wife that you had a hard dang day at work today, but I'm looking at you and know that you flaked and did nothing all day except occupy space. Now, when I tell one of those guys that, they don't want me to call their wife because they know I will. And I'll ask them, hey, did they tell you they worked hard today? I just want to let you know that was BS. They didn't even do the 3 hours of prospecting they're supposed to do. They took, I don't know how many pee breaks and coffee breaks that they made, and others creative avoidance. But that's the reality. You know what? What I did, Neil, is one thing I can remember. I remember in my prospecting station, and by the way, if I moved out of this video room that I'm in and I went into I still have a prospecting station that I stand out and I coach from every day. And there's still a picture of, I think it's Tatiana, who's 19 years old right now. I still have a picture there where she had her head turned kind of like this. And I placed that picture on my wall, and based on how her head was turned, she was looking at me the entire time. And I said to myself, every day I would think like this, am I being the example that I would want her to follow?
Well,
and
in
listen,
life,
I don't know anybody that's really on this call, but I know that all of us need to be a better example.
We're either an example, Greg, or we're a warning.
Oh, warning. I've never heard that one. I like
Yeah,
that.
we're either an example or we're a warning. And my favorite one that we'll end it here is you are where you are because it's okay with you. Because if it wasn't okay with you, you do something about it. You are where you are because it's okay with you. Greg, I kind of see maybe a little podcast where you and I could bounce off of each other just doing something like this. We'll play with that.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
Okay, good job. All right, everybody, unmute yourself. Unmute yourselves. Let's go. Unmute yourselves. Greg Harrelson. Woo! All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Whoa.
Welcome.
That's exciting. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.